All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the We Win Injury Law podcast show. I'm Tyler Todd, your host, with my co-host, the Snow Canyon Man Sandberg, wearing the settlement chain champion. Look at that's awesome.
Yeah, we gotta
settlement champion
we gotta describe
chain.
it. Yeah,
what do we call it? If any of you guys are watching or listening,
it's just great.
If you ever watch college football or the NFL. And a lot of the defenses on the sidelines are, putting chains on one another when they come off the field after doing something awesome like a sack or an interception. We felt like we needed our own chain.
Yeah, settlement chain. If we get a big settlement or big victory for our client, we got something cool.
Yeah, and when our staff and our paralegals are doing great stuff, and something too that if you haven't seen before, heard me say it before, because we get this a lot. What's up with the We Win name? And so I want people to remember we chose the We Win Injury Law name, one, because we wanted injury law in the name so people knew what we did. We're injury lawyers, but two, we're like a team. We're like sports, right? I mean, I play sports, you play sports. We're competitive by nature. And when we win for our clients, it's not just Tyler winning or Jaron winning. Yeah. It's all of our staff that are a big part of wins.
Yeah, it takes a team.
And it takes a team. So it's we win. We win together for you. And that's why we say we win for you, period, because that's what we do. And when we're winning, you're winning. And when you're winning, we're winning. And it's kind of a cool thing. That's why we chose we win, because we win for you.
Now, to be fair, Tyler's had a good week. Almost $1 million in checks coming in. So
we've had
I do feel like we need a passing of the torch.
Oh, you're going to pass it to me for the week? Okay.
I feel like I'm 90. It's so heavy.
Let's do it. What do you think?
It's fitting, dude. It's great.
It's been a good week. We've done really well for our clients. And again, I want to reemphasize, it's not me winning, it's we winning.
Yeah.
And we've actually it's been a great week. So
when one of our staff wears it next, we're going to have a rule. They can't take it off all day. And it's also a workout.
It is heavy.
It is.
I might have to wear this like on the treadmill or something.
Yeah,
like people wear
gym.
the weighted like vest.
Is it the pull-up bar? The guys wear the belts with the weight on it. You can use it. Now you don't need one because you've already got it.
Wear the We Win Settlement Champion chain.
I love it.
This is great. All right. We got that out of the way.
Yeah.
Hey, big news. Big news. It just dropped today. Karen Reed, verdict, not guilty on second-degree murder, not guilty on manslaughter. Did we really have any doubts?
You didn't doubt from the start, but I became a believer the more we kind of talked about it. So
I never doubted it. It was just too crazy. And then since we've done our podcast on it, gone back and looked at more of the facts, more videos, more TikTok videos, and you see more and more things that we've left out because there's just so much like against the Commonwealth. And in fact, I was just watching the news when the verdict was announced, and one of the commentators was like, just think about the amount of money the Commonwealth spent of taxpayer money of bringing this trial, not one time, but two times.
Yeah.
And both, one on the first one, right, hung, and the second one, not guilty.
Like a worse outcome than at least with the hung jury, you could have still held it like, well, we had a holdout, right?
Right. Or, we didn't feel good about the way we presented that particular fact or evidence.
But now they had a second bite at the apple, and now not even a hung jury, not guilty.
Not guilty. Now, she was found guilty on impairment, DUI, I think in the Commonwealth as OUI, under the influence or something like that.
Yeah.
But that's it. So now she's going to be sentenced on a DUI charge.
Yeah.
And I think she can handle that. But not guilty on the second-degree murder and manslaughter charges, which is huge for her and a big win for Alan Jackson, Alessi, and the rest of the legal team.
And
good for them. We did a great job.
Don't you think it was kind of fun to hear the cheers from all the way outside the courtroom? That's how loud it was.
Yeah, that was wild.
Now I wonder if there would have been boos if it would have gone the other way.
I would imagine. So this brings me to kind of like the question we brought up on our previous podcast when we talked about it. Will they be... It's kind of heavy.
If you need to take it off, we can set it down.
Will the judge, Auntie Bev, or any of those involved in bringing this case or who had any sort of involvement on the case with the Commonwealth be like investigated anyway?
Oh, that is interesting. I would have figured more would have come from it had she been found guilty, because I feel like the appellate court would have really gone after her. Now with the not guilty, maybe less.
Maybe less. You know, just a good point. I don't know. I mean, because if you guys have been watching and following the Karen Read trial, the jury's been deliberating for like the last 3 days, and they came back with a couple questions. And then what was, I think, put the internet on fire, rightfully so. The jury was asking a really good question. Hey, if we come back with 2 not guilty verdicts on 2 of the charges, can we still have a hung jury on one of the other charges? Which
was so great we kind of knew what they were going to do before they did it.
Totally. And they had to feel good about it. But the judge, Auntie Bev, refused to answer.
Yeah.
Which is crazy and she was like, I don't think I can answer. I'm going to send it back. I can't answer this right now. It's too theoretical. Those were her words. It's a theoretical question. And it's not a theoretical question. They absolutely could have a verdict on 2 of the charges and hung on a 3rd or 4th. So, and that's why I think Alan Jackson was trying to, against his objections, right? She said, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
But it's crazy that she would just say, that's the law. I'll send that back. It shouldn't change the way you find or come to a verdict, but yes, you can.
Yeah.
I think that would have been the appropriate way of dealing with that question from the jury. And so, and kudos to Alan Jackson, obviously making his objection for the record be loud and clear. She did. I think she misappropriated that as well. She mishandled that as well. I mean, I think it was another example of how many bones is she trying to give the Commonwealth of convicting Karen Read?
Well, and that's the one thing I don't know. That there could be, because to us it sounds ridiculous that you couldn't answer that, but maybe there is something in that specific jurisdiction that requires her to not comment if she feels like it is, and now she's worried about. Because again, the context told her what was going to happen. At that point, when you get that question, we find him not guilty on 2 and hung on the other one. I think everyone knew that it would be pretty impossible to say, well, not guilty on the intoxication, not guilty on manslaughter, but maybe guilty on the most serious one or hung on the most serious one. So I think it kind of tilted the hat to now we're just dealing with the DUI, which even then, and with all the media coverage and her admitting that she spiked her own drinks.
But again, that's what I think validates the call for an investigation on this judge, because it was almost like she was doing one final like Hail Mary to encourage or do anything she could to promote a conviction.
Yeah.
That's where it's like, are you serious? And then, of course, more videos surfaced on social media about the whole like scratching her face, where it looked like she was giving signals to the prosecution on when to object. And I didn't realize earlier when we actually turn up the volume, because a lot of times when we scroll, you guys were watching, we're like, we don't have the volume on.
We're reading the text.
We're reading the text. And I actually turned up the volume, and I didn't realize that Prosecutor Brennan had like objected as soon as she was scratching her face, which anyone like objectively watching is going to be like, oh, that's a tell.
Yeah.
That's obvious. Like she was totally.
She would not be great at poker.
No.
She was not a great poker player.
I'm going to take this off, actually. This is great. Where are we going to put this? It's heavy. And now to wear that chain. If there's no incentive, there's incentive now to put on the chain. But yeah, so that's what's happened just within the last 20 minutes of Karen Read, the Karen Read verdict, not guilty. So that's pretty awesome. I really do hope that there's, and I'm going to be like eating my popcorn, right? Additional investigation into.
Well, they might appeal the what is it? The equivalent of DUI.
So I just was watching before we came on, and they're going to, I think, go straight to sentencing on that today.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So they must be pretty confident they kind of know the outcome on the offense.
Right. Or at the very least, go do your 3 days or 5 days in jail. Or
my guess is
probably time served.
Yeah, statutory minimums.
Right. So if there was time served, I mean, they're probably like, hey, pay your fine, do whatever, and let's make this be done. So I can't imagine the Commonwealth appeals this not guilty verdict. I mean, they can, but I can't imagine they will. If they do,
well, I don't think that can they appeal the not guilty.
No, they can't appeal not guilty.
I don't think they can on the not guilty.
Yeah.
Obviously, the defendant has a right to appeal if they're found guilty, but I think
they can't bring it again.
I don't think they can bring anything again.
Right. See, that's my civil hat, trying to get into the criminal justice system.
Yeah, because in civil, both sides can appeal.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, though, like with regards to like investigations and whatnot. I don't know, but that seems to be over. And now what's the internet going to talk about next?
Well, one final note on that too. Do you think it was kind of fun watching some of the videos? Like some of these, like there's one that was like a soccer mom had a whole chart with pictures, and I kind of love that people are getting into it. It was awesome.
Absolutely. The legal analysis by a number of people around this country were amazing and spot on. And I thought it was great. I think that kind of substantiated why legal shows are so popular.
Yeah.
Because people really like to get into like the whole analysis of whether she was guilty or not, and whether, what the verdict would be.
Well, and it might even, I hope it will, because me and you talk about some of these attorney shows, right, that maybe aren't as fun. Because the legal side of it is sometimes terrible, right? We're like, that would never happen. That would never happen.
Well, the procedure, right?
And so the whole focus is like almost just like inner office drama, and that's the show. This kind of goes the other way, where I think people enjoy deep diving in on the evidence and how witnesses were presented. I mean, it's why these court feed cases are so fun, but also maybe there's a little bit of room for a show that actually shows like real legal or as close to it as you can, and not just the inner office romances and things that are maybe a little more feel like daytime television, as opposed to actual courtroom drama that's a real courtroom case.
Well, I mean, that is probably one of the reasons why Judge Judy is the highest paid actress. I think she's an actress on TV. I think she makes $70 million a year.
Yeah, it was some crazy number. We looked this up one time.
Because people like that real courtroom drama. Even I don't know if that's real courtroom drama.
Well, that one, I think, didn't we decide it was small claims drama?
But still. But it's awesome. I mean, and that's what, to some degree, makes our job so fun and exciting, because it is real life cases. It is real life drama. It's real life. It's people's lives. And we take that seriously. I think that's another reason why I don't like the TV drama, is because we're dealing with real emotions and real people and real feelings and injuries.
And that was Karen Reed today, watching her hug her attorney. And we've been on the other side of that, where a client gives you a hug after a big victory. And gosh, that's a great feeling.
It's a great feeling. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see what kind of surfaces next, right?
Well, you see clips of like great sports moment, right? The comeback win, the Hail Mary touchdown. Sometimes like watching a client get a settlement or something, it's not as sexy as that courtroom drama of getting found not guilty. But to us, I think it feels the same. Like there's no greater high than getting to call a client and say like, look, we just got this. This is the amount we've either negotiated, or, hey, they fought us so long and we just got a big victory. That's a great feeling.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And I think what people hopefully understand, when we're dealing with a lot of insurance companies pre-litigation, right? Because that's how most cases get resolved. Most cases, injury cases, get resolved pre-litigation. And so a lot of times clients will ask, well, what's the deadline on that? Well, it's a good question, one, but two, there are no deadlines. Yeah. And oftentimes the timeline is mostly dependent on the injuries and the treatment, right, that is needed for those injuries. And then it's just a matter of negotiating with the insurance companies, which there are no deadlines, because deadlines only really come into play if we give them a deadline. Yeah. Okay. Or two, when we file suit and then the court has procedural timelines and deadlines, right? Yeah. So I want people to know that there's not a timeline per se when we're dealing with insurance companies, but that's what makes it so exciting, because when we've given timelines or demands and we're waiting to hear from the insurance company, or they say, hey, we're going to have an offer to you in 10 days, and we tell our client, hey, look, we're expecting to hear back, then that can be exciting. Hey, we've heard back and we got the policy limits, or the offer was significantly better than what we thought they would offer, and maybe we can avoid trial.
Yeah.
But more oftentimes than not, we get these offers and we're like, it's a crappy offer. It's looking like we're going to have to go to trial.
And that call even, gosh, to the client at the same time, what a relief on some cases I don't have to go to trial. Or they've sat through a deposition, and then after that, the insurance company finally offered to settle for the amount that was fair and reasonable. I mean, after sitting through a deposition, I think a lot of our clients are like, oh, trial's going to be worse than this. This is stressful.
It's true. I mean, one thing I do, I don't want to ever make sure everybody knows, and I don't think I've ever said this before, but I want to say it now. When you hire a lawyer, I think you're entitled. It's our civil justice system. That's what we do. Okay. A lot of people are like, well, why do I have to use a lawyer? Why? We just had a case with the judge recently, like one of our local judges, who almost made it sound like you're going to waste the court's time on a rear end impact collision?
Yeah. And knew nothing about the case or the injuries, anything else besides that it was a rear end collision case.
And we asked for a trial date, and it was almost like, okay, almost like an anti-Bev eye roll.
Yeah.
Okay, like, really? Well, Judge, this is our civil justice system.
Yeah.
This is the only way we get to enforce the insurance companies to do what's right and what's fair and just, to bring a court or a case in front of you and a jury and ask for what's fair. And it was really a weird response, to be honest.
Yeah,
I'm not going to lie.
I agree.
So I say that because when we do that and you hire a lawyer and that's because that's what we do, right? We have put our attorney hats on. We got to file suit, or if they don't pay fair value, right? Pre-litigation,
which most of the time it's not even close to fair value.
Most of the time it's not even close.
It's not just we're disagreeing over a few $1,000s. This is massive amount difference between what we think it's worth or even a fair value and what the defense is offering.
Totally. But what I want you guys to know, and what I want people to know is, come ready to fight, okay, and be prepared to fight, because it's going to take a fight, and there might be firms out there that will settle quickly and easily. And how long is this going to take? Oh, no time at all.
Yeah.
But in order to get fair value, like you just said, come ready to fight, and we're ready to fight, and that's what our MO is, to say, you know what, that's not fair, that's not just. We're ready to fight, and we're going to fight. But we want to make sure that you guys know that you got to become ready to fight too. And if you're ready to fight, we're ready to fight. Hence the chain.
Yeah. And to be fair, there are clients that are like, Tyler, I can't go through this again. I can't go with this fight. And so I'm willing to take less, and we'll listen to our clients. But
of course.
But most clients, they don't want less. They want what's fair. And we're not saying we need what's crazy, right? We want what's fair
or unreasonable.
And most of the time, we're willing to fight for what's fair. We always are, and most of the time, our clients want to fight too.
Yeah, and so that's another excellent point. Look, everyone has different circumstances and situations in their life that will dictate whether that fight makes sense or not.
Yeah,
right. Some people are like, I have so much on my plate right now that I just don't have the bandwidth for that fight, and that's totally fair.
Yeah.
But just know that in order to really get fair value, the insurance companies are going to make you fight. We're ready to fight. Come ready to fight.
And then we'll let them wear the necklace too.
And then they wear the chain. Absolutely. But we got a few minutes to talk about something that's really, it's kind of a crazy time in history, to be honest. In all reality, it's a crazy time in history to talk about airplanes that are seemingly falling out of the skies, right?
Yeah.
We've had some nasty airplane crashes this year, and things that you just don't think would ever happen.
Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting year. And we talked about this before the show, because I have, if anyone followed the news, there was that Alaska flight, and it was my brother-in-law's brother. So my sister's husband, I get this text, kind of late, like, hey, we're actually heading to Alaska. They've lost the plane. They're not tracking it. Plane was supposed to arrive the night before on this flight from up in Alaska. It was going across the ocean. It's presumed at this point they've had search parties going. By the time I got wind of it, at least, the search party's been going for 15 hours, and it's the middle of winter. So pretty gnarly case. Father of, I think, 5 or 6 children. I could be wrong on that number. And, by, I think the next day, as kind of the weather cleared, they found the plane in chunks of ice, and everyone on board had passed away. So
when was that? That was only a couple months ago, right?
Yeah, not that long ago, just a few months ago. And a lot of, you get into the law side of it, it's a lot of really complex law with some of these things. We'll get into that in the show, so I don't want to
maritime and
maritime. There were some maritime laws that in federal court that benefited them versus Alaska, some of Alaska's caps and different things. And so It was really, really interesting, that analysis of it. But it was interesting to see kind of the family's reaction, because my sister and brother-in-law are dealing with funeral arrangements. There's legal ramifications. There's all his kids. Some of them are, in college age. Some of them are still minors. And just from the, we analyze these from the legal side all the time. It was very interesting to kind of just see the other side of this, and kind of how some of that unfolded, and how family members were approaching the legal side of thing. And I knew from our side what they needed to do and who they needed to contact, but it was very different than just seeing the different side of it. And this was like I swear it was like 2 weeks after we had a helicopter crash in DC, that whole plane went down. And I don't know if you recall, but the day of that helicopter crash, me and you were flying back from Florida.
That's right.
We were on a flight, and it was the same airline.
American Airlines flight in DC with the helicopter.
Yeah. So I think people are realizing these are, it seems like it's happening more often.
Well, that's why it's so crazy, because you would, and condolences obviously to your family with the loss of your brother-in-law's brother. I mean, it is, but that helps us. It is interesting when we get to see both sides, and we're not just viewing it or analyzing from the legal perspective, but you also see it from the family side of it. It helps us put ourselves in our client's shoes and what they're going through when there's catastrophic loss. And I think you've spoken to some of the family members directly.
Oh yeah,
about it. And so that's made national news, that plane crash involving your family, the American Airlines with the Army helicopter, and then the Air India disaster that just happened within the last week. 241 killed, one survivor.
The one survivor, man, that's
on a 787 Dreamliner Boeing.
That's a
airplane,
big airplane.
You would never think. I mean, I would, and not trying to minimize or disrespect the Alaska crash. And I don't have a pilot license. I fly commercially. I have a limited knowledge base. When you look at the plane that your brother-in-law's brother was in, you look at that, you say, okay, I might be scared to fly in that, right?
No, trust me, I thought the exact same thing. Like, I don't know if I would get in that airplane. Right. And I think if you're from Alaska, and this was a comment that was made, was you're maybe more used to those bush style planes.
Right.
But this is a big commercial.
But you would never ever think, one, that an American Airlines flight, because we're on those size planes all the time flying in and out of Utah. Yeah. Now, if we're in out of Salt Lake Airport, we're on the bigger airplanes. If we're in and out of St. George Airport, we're on the smaller airplane. But we're on that size plane a lot. So you would never think that type of airplane would have a mid-air collision with a helicopter. With today's technology, with today's skills and FAA requirements of the pilots and the towers and all these different things, it's like, how did that happen?
Well, and you even think like you always hear on the news things like, well, this is like a 40-year-old plane design that they've upgraded. And part of me is like, is the airline industry inventory of planes just getting old? Well, I mean, that may be that happening. But how is this technology not changed in 40 years to I
think it was a fairly newer plane, and this Air India, I think the Boeing 787 Dreamliner was a 2012 airplane. That's I think for airplane age, that's not very old at all.
I don't think so. And now maybe we need to start thinking because you start thinking of we'd laugh about my car and the AC's maybe not as great. It's a 2014 car, and we're like, well,
a little bit. It struggles. Right? We sweat profusely when we get in your car.
So it's maybe we should start having that same analysis with an airplane. This is a 16-year-old airplane. Now I think just part of us is well, no, the FAA is on it, and all these. They've got better maintenance than maybe I do on my car, right? That's the perception.
And to be fair, right, immediately you're kind of okay, it's Air India, it's in India. Do they have the same requirements, checklist, FAA requirements that we have here in the United States? But then you go back to the American Airlines U.S. Army helicopter crash, and you're well, how'd that happen?
Yeah. Or even remember the one that, I don't think they had any fatalities.
The Delta.
But the slid on and even that, you're how did that happen? This is 2025. This isn't the 1980s where maybe technology was just catching up. Age of computers is starting to maybe, they should have worked out the kinks by 2025 in some of this stuff.
It's unbelievable. And that's where, and I've been glued to social media, just watching, because I'm just in shock that it happened. I think most people are, right? Yeah. And condolences to all the family members suffering from directly or indirectly from this. Something that never should have happened. And of course, we're going to get, the data, obviously black box recovery. I think even the FAA is over there trying to also be, and the NTSB, they're trying to get involved to be provide support in regards to the investigation. But then we have the miracle, the one survivor. You heard about that, right?
Yes.
Seat 11A. Is that going to be if you go buy a seat on American Airlines or Delta or Southwest, because I feel like every airline has to like, you can like upgrade your seat, right? And then like you click on the little seat and the price tag, you're like, oh my gosh, like $60 for that seat? No way. I wonder if like seat 11A is like, you're going to click on it and be like, 2,999.
Yeah, it's more than first class. Well, and just for reference, because I looked it up because I wanted to know if there was something on the United States. So in 2025, we've had 94 aviation accidents in the United States.
94.
14 of them have included fatalities.
Wow.
That's a lot more
That's
than
a
I think
lot.
people. The age-old mantra, and maybe this comes from the airline industry. Maybe their statistics back up. You always hear that you're safer to be on an airplane.
Well, that's what I say. I mean, I'm flying soon, so I don't want to freak myself out.
But tell me this: at least with car accidents, you're wearing your seatbelt. If you're not on the freeway, most of the time we think, barring that we get hit by a semi-truck, you're not going to hopefully see a fatality, but. Most airplane crashes, when they're walking you through that checklist of like stick your head down between the seat and your seat can be used as a flotation device, most of the time I'm like, I'm going to die. Like,
you're ignoring, you're like, I'm not floating anywhere.
I'm not. Yeah, this is.
We go down. There's a good chance.
This seat cushion's going to hold me up in the ocean or like, I don't know.
The door didn't hold up Jack.
Yeah.
In Titanic.
Like with that little seat cushion, it's not going to do it.
Give me a break. If that door can't get Jack on and multiple people on that door, what's the cushion going to do?
Yeah, barring that you're like having a crash in open water, but it's close to the shoreline.
You're going to get eaten by sharks before you survive any. I mean, if you survive the crash, you're going to be eaten by sharks.
I just don't see myself like Tom Hanks surviving this and living on the island and teaching myself to fish with a spear. I just don't think it's going to happen.
If you do, you should probably watch that movie.
Yeah. In preparation.
You
should watch that before every flight.
Just in case.
You know what? I like it.
And take a volleyball.
Volleyball. You need a volleyball, an emotional support volleyball. That's what they call it now. At the time, they didn't. You just called it Wilson.
Now you can take it on the airplane with you.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. So it's like an emotional support
Wilson
inflatable.
Wilson brand volleyball.
Yeah.
Was it Wilson brand? Is that why you called it?
So like if your carry-on is, it's Wilson. If your carry-on is too big, but it's because of the ball, it passes.
I like that.
Yep. So do that.
Wilson!
Yeah, watch that movie. Be prepared.
That's the saddest losing a sports equipment item seen in all of film.
I can't think of another.
No, there's not.
Okay, back to the
we got way too far.
Yeah, back to the serious stuff. No, it's crazy though, to be honest. It's crazy what's happening. So I'm shocked, and I'm really, really, really interested to see what is discovered in regards to what caused this crash. Some are saying pilot error. Some are saying technical errors with the flaps or with the engines and just a massive engine failure. I'm just shocked. And how in today's day and age. So I just, maybe a little PSA. How about that? A little PSA. And then we're going to talk legal. And we only have a few more minutes to talk legal on some of the stuff. PSA. Maybe we need to calm down when the airplane doesn't take off quite on time.
That's true.
Right? You know, if there's technical issues or they're going to replace a part or whatever they're doing.
Do you recall me and you were on a plane flight? And I don't know if this was coming back from Florida or when we were coming back from Atlanta, but they were like, we're going to try turning it off and back on again.
Like to reset it?
They reset it almost like I just called customer support and they're like, push the power button on your computer and reset it. Hold it down for 10 seconds. I love that it was the pilot that came on and like, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to try turning it off and back on again. Do you remember this?
I do.
There was a little bit of nerves, even for me.
Oh, there are a lot of nerves.
I was like, wait, that's what we're trying, and like it fixed it?
And that's before all this stuff happened.
Before all these.
So, I'm really curious to see what's going to happen. A lawsuit has been filed with the American Airlines U.S. Army helicopter crash incident. And that was with a family or surviving family members of one of the victims on board of that American Airlines flight. And that lawsuit's for a $250 million claim against, I think it's against the airlines, against the U.S. Army, it's against the airport. I think there's a number of parties involved.
My guess is I could see that going to the $1 billion, though, if once all the other lawsuits get finalized and filed. My guess is there's some have settled or.
Well, and I also understand that the U.S. government is in negotiations with American Airlines to kind of have a global resolution because it is expected to be in the billions.
Yeah.
And again, I think rightfully so. And I'm curious, please comment, what is that worth? What is, if if your mom or your dad or your husband or your wife or your siblings or anyway, I guess you have to be an heir, were on board one of these airplanes, what's their life worth? What would you do? Would you want to file a lawsuit and do whatever you could to do something like that? And then if you did that, what do you think it's worth? Because that's what it boils down to. One is you got to find out why did the plane go down and who's at fault? And then once you kind of determine that, what's the value of the life?
Yeah. And I think there's always that component we think of with these cases. On big cases that seem egregious, the value keeps going up the more we find out if this was something that could have been a lot easier prevented. Because there are things that are, what did they know and how much did they know? And the more they knew, that number is going to go up and up and up.
Yeah, I agree with that. And so it kind of begs the question. I know that Boeing was under investigation recently by Congress. I don't know if you recall seeing their CEO in the congressional hearings about all the different challenges that Boeing's had. So is Boeing at fault for the Air India crash?
Was it pilot error?
Does Air India have policies and procedures in place or training issues in regards to, hey, if there are warnings that the flaps aren't where they're supposed to be, whatever.
Well, and there's even interesting things on caps in India and what they've been offered.
Right.
Whether they're going to have jurisdiction to sue in circuit courts here in the United States or other jurisdictions, because there is somewhat of a venue shopping with some of these airlines as well. So it'll be interesting to know how those proceed. Yeah,
that's a good point. And that kind of goes back to your family's issue with the Alaska crash, right?
Yeah.
But I know that the Air India reportedly is offering like $120,000 per family, per victim, which I think is crazy.
Which sounds like a lot, or not a lot at all. Not even in the ballpark of what someone's life is valued at. But again, I don't know if they might have caps or other things. That's what I don't know.
Right. Yeah. And so I'm curious for your comments. Is 120 days?
It is not fair. If you answer it's fair for the life of someone, you're not going to be on our jury.
Do not slide into our DM saying that's fair, apparently. Do not.
You can comment if
I'm
it's
just telling you, don't do it because we may mock you.
We're going to call out user 758 if they do. You're going to get a live on the air heckle from two attorneys.
It's not, to me, I'm with you. It's not fair.
Yeah.
So, but what it is, and that's the question mark. So let's talk. We got to wrap up this episode, but it's just, there's got to be more accountability for all you that are flying soon or today or whenever. If they come on and say we're changing a part, maybe calm down, let them change the part. Yeah. If anything, it shows that, hey, there are issues and we want to make sure that our airline travel is safe. And I think the airlines, they want that because Air India is about to get blasted with lawsuits. And so are a number of other probably entities and parties. And American Airlines is dealing the same thing. And then also, obviously, all the other entities involved, the U.S. government also involved.
Well, do you think it's just as interesting because you're going on a flight here and it's international. Did the American Airlines crash play any part in your decision making on which airline you would fly with? Do you feel like it's still a factor of cost and flight times?
I mean, it's probably in the back of your mind. I think when it boils down to like airports and stops and travel time and distance and cost, of course, I think it all still probably is more. I mean, I've flown American Airlines since. Yeah. If that answers your question.
Yeah. So I just wondered, like, we kind of rely on these government agencies and attorneys that are working on these cases to kind of bring because otherwise you kind of just go about your life and to someone, the family won't, and I don't want to minimize that, but I just wonder if it impacts like, oh, we had a bad crash. It obviously affects their stock price, but I always wonder, does it really affect customer behavior in a significant way?
I mean, maybe, but I think your comment triggers my immediate reaction, and that's why hopefully we do what we do. We get a lot of comments in our TikToks and Instagram reels and different things about being ambulance chasers and all those different things, but hopefully we are also those, I don't even know how to say it, public servants, lawyers, fighters, whatever. My sister-in-law always has jokes that I'm like her favorite like fighter for justice.
Yeah. And she's not saying that ironically?
No, I don't know. Of course
she
not.
means it.
No, she means it.
Okay,
yeah. But we do make change. And injury lawyers and those that are like going to hold Boeing or Air India or whoever, American Airlines or the U.S. accountable for change, hopefully that's making our skies safer.
Yeah.
And our airplanes safer. And that goes back to the Starbucks lawsuit recently when they were trying to get a confidentiality settlement. No, because they want people to know that there's got to be safety and regulation in consumer products.
Yeah.
So hopefully that, if nothing else, premiums go up. I get it. Whatever. They're going to go up regardless.
Yeah.
If, oh, the injury lawyers are making our premiums go up. Guess what? They're going to go up regardless.
Yeah. Especially if the company's got terrible safety history and all these other things. So again, you hope that these lawsuits sometimes, again, not only provide recourse for the victims, but hopefully make the flight that you're booking
safer. That we drive and we force change.
Yeah.
So remember that there's going to be accountability. And let's finish up lastly with your family. What's happening at the moment?
At the moment, they're kind of still deciding how united the front is going to be on where they file, what venue. My understanding is they have not filed yet. There's still some preliminary negotiations with the airlines. I've heard some of the other victims' families are represented by three or four of, I think there was 11 victims, are represented by one attorney up in Alaska, and there's some Seattle-based groups that mainly do a lot of. Apparently, there's a lot of crashes up in the Alaska area. It would be interesting to know of those 94 we mentioned in the first episode, how many
like the Pacific Northwest?
Pacific Northwest, because my guess is most of these 94 are not large passenger planes, or we'd know more about them.
Right.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that kind of folds out. And maybe I'll reach out to my brother-in-law and get an update for a future episode and I've tried to be sensitive to that issue because I come at it from both angles, right? It's too hard. Sometimes it's really hard with the family members not to just turn on the attorney hat.
You want some good tea for the legal stuff, but it's also a real issue for them.
So I've been trying to, kind of be sensitive about that issue. But I'm sure at this point when there is something major, I'm sure I'll find out.
Yeah. Well, what it does highlight, and to wrap it up, is it highlights obviously the importance for your family. And I think you gave them really good advice to hire an aviation attorney out of the Pacific Northwest who's familiar with
these types of cases.
Those types of cases.
And me and you even discussed this. Let's be honest, guys. Like, me and Tyler run a business. I mean, if we think we could do the best job on that case, I would have told her so. And at the same time, I haven't done aviation type cases, and there's ways we can bring in other attorneys and partner with attorneys. But in this specific situation, me and you looked up attorneys, and we read reviews and did our best due diligence, looked up people that were part of national trial lawyers and different things. And I did the same analysis with them that me and you would do is, hey, I'm not the best attorney for this. And look, this group that you're reaching out to looks, at least by all appearances, like the type of group that handles these specific types of cases. And
notwithstanding being a family member, or somebody you knew, or hey, my brother-in-law's he's a lawyer, you should hire him.
Yeah.
No, I mean, we hear that a lot too. So when you're dealing, though, and I want to highlight this, when you're dealing with car crashes, motorcycle accidents, truck accidents, whatever it might be, boat accidents in the city of Utah, that's what we do.
Yeah.
And you may know somebody that may be affiliated with somebody or connected with somebody. Make sure you hire the right lawyer for what you need. And in that particular instance with the plane crash up in Alaska, it obviously wasn't us. Yeah. It was somebody up there that was familiar with that. So that's something that we want to highlight too. Yeah. And a little pat on our back, because those are the cases we handle.
Yeah.
And hopefully hopefully you don't ever need us, but if you do, call us. That's what we do. And that's our expertise. And like the chain says, and like our name says, it's a we win for you, period. That's our team, our staff, and our expertise. Hopefully the airlines can get this figured out. Hopefully there's some, closure for Air India and all the families affected by that disaster, American Airlines and the U.S. government, your brother's family or brother-in-law's brother's family.
Yeah.
And hopefully that this is the last we ever hear of a commercial airliner falling out of the sky like that. That's wild. Crazy. So anyways, you guys, thanks for tuning in. We love talking about this stuff. We love talking about what we do. We're passionate about what we do. We love talking about cases and lawsuits and the Karen Reed trial. What's going to be next? Kornberger, we'll see what happens there. And the Idaho 4 and Diddy, we're waiting for that result. And maybe there's going to be some more courtroom drama or just around the corner. I'm sure there will be. So stay tuned. Thank you guys for subscribing and liking. We appreciate it. We appreciate the support. Until next time, always stay classy wherever you may be subscribing to our podcast.